Hey folks, this is, what day is it? Wednesday, September 3rd, 2020. And I just got a call from Larry. I got a call right after he finished with Jason. He did half an hour with Jason. And if you can't find it on Jason Goodman, check out Crowdsource the Truth #2. Crowdsource the Truth 2 is where I watched. And if you want, I could certainly read through. Larry talked to me afterwards, said he wanted to rest. And then I just got a call from him. And he said there is no way he has the energy left to do another show right now because his fever's going back up. So that is not good for him and his fevers. That's always a big problem. Let me grab, let's see, I had two notebooks here. I can read through some of what he said. I can give you the key points. He said in 1991, when Larry and Bill had their falling out and Bill Clinton was running for president, hang on, some of these texts in me, let me see what it is. He broke the story in the Star about a girl who was going to come out and talk about her affair. And the AP wouldn't carry the story, and the Clintons had Bill Simmons say that Larry was a nut. And so he told the Star, don't give out the name of the girl and let them say that it's a bogus story, and then they bring out Jennifer Flowers, which is what they did. And in the beginning, Jennifer was saying, that she was in love with him, and so, making it sound like she was nuts. But she got paid $125,000 by the Star to come out with her story. And it might have been a little less than that, but anyhow, it was at least 100,000. He said that people the guys especially felt sorry for Bill because of Hillary, and Jennifer being pretty seemed like a good thing. So this story bumped Bill Clinton from being a nobody and number 11 in the polls to number 2. And so Larry kept going after him. And DC media said that he'd never, and this is all in Larry's book, 28 Years to Nowhere. So the DC media said that Bill Clinton would never get in. And Larry told them, you don't understand the Arkansas system. He's going to clean everybody out. And so what Bill Clinton did is he exposed all the criminal behavior and illegal, immoral behavior of congressmen, senators, and prosecutors. And anybody who did not stand with Bill Clinton got kicked out. And that's why you had so many of the Democrats saying, I didn't leave the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left me. And so a lot of the people in Congress switched to the Republican Party. Larry Clayman brought Jennifer Flowers out saying that, it was just a love affair. And Larry said, you need to know Bill Clinton doesn't know how to love anybody. And Gary Johnson, the attorney next door to Jennifer Flowers, had videotapes of Bill Clinton coming and going. Now, Gary, what's in the book is that Gary Johnson had a camera outside because his bicycle had been stolen. So he had a camera to tape record who was coming and going on their floor. And so he saw Bill Clinton coming and going out of Jennifer's apartment. The media would not print any of Larry's stories. That's how powerful the Stevens brothers were. And of course, Larry had worked for the Stevens brothers for years because they owned the banks in Arkansas, and Larry was their ad man. And so they had used Larry to get Bill Clinton into office in the first place. And now here Larry's turned against Bill, which means, I would assume that meant he had to be fighting the Stevens too, although he wasn't going to take them on, Dixie Mafia that they were. So anyhow, he got smart. Larry got smart and started feeding the stories to the Telegraph in London. And they got so popular and their news was read here in the U.S. And so the U.S. media had to pick up the stories. And then he said that he played tricks on the media because he'd call the Washington Times and say, hey, the Washington Post is going to run such and such a story. Do you want to run it first? And I'll give you the scoop. And the Post wasn't going to, but that was one way for him to get some of his stories into the media. Then he started talking about unintended consequences, which was the name of the show that Larry did with Jason today. He said, there was such incredible division and polarity created under Clinton. Before Larry, even if you knew that Clinton used cocaine and was a womanizer, you would never call him out as a cokehead or a womanizer, but Larry did. And it was their method to divide the country and polarize so that you were either pro Bill Clinton or anti Bill Clinton, and creating hatred against one another. And he said they're doing the same thing today. If you are pro-Trump, you hate those that are not. And if you hate Trump, then you're going to hate everybody who supports Trump. He's very concerned about the massive fraud that's going to happen with the elections this year. And he said that the Democrats already have 1,200 lawyers hired to challenge every vote. And so we're hearing these stories. I've been hearing these stories that Trump's going to win by a landslide and they're going to cry foul. And they're going to come after it in the court system and tie everything up. And he said, if you vote by mail, that is just a license to steal. There's no security in such a system. Listen, folks, you're going to hear Larry say this over and over again in the next 2 months. The only way to have an honest election is if you vote in person at the polling station and ask for a paper ballot. Do not use the machine. Demand a paper ballot. They have to have paper ballots for those people who cannot use a machine for disabilities, or they have to have paper ballots in case the electricity goes out, so the machine's shut down. If you cannot get a paper ballot, if they absolutely refuse you one, go to the Board of Elections office. Make sure you know where that Board of Elections office is. In 2016, I worked the polling stations myself. I signed up with Board of Elections and got trained to do that. And so I had to vote absentee ballot. But what I did is I went straight to the Board of Elections. And of course, when we have early voting, you can go and do that. I went to the Board of Elections and did it by paper ballot. Now, the one thing I was concerned about is it did not get read immediately. And I wondered if the girl I handed it to threw it out. And I was concerned about that because I was doing absentee. So it would have been better. I'm not sure that Maryland had early voting at that point. I should have gone and done a paper ballot at the polling station is what I should have done. And that's what I'm going to do from now on. He said Jason asked him, how can we prevail? And Larry said, we have to get Trump's side fired up to show up. And this is no time for the weak-hearted. Do you realize there are 30 million Christians who are not registered to vote because they think they're going to stay above the fray and not get their hands dirty by voting? Are you kidding me? A failure to vote allows, remember, wasn't it Adam said the only way for a country to go bad is for good people to do nothing? So if you're not voting, you are allowing evil to take control. Well, if you can vote with a paper ballot and they have a machine to read it immediately, that's what needs to happen. Now, Maryland went to all paper ballots, but there was no guarantee that they didn't flip it in the machine because the machine read it, and you got no receipt proving you had voted or how you had voted. And so, if there is any way, I don't know if this will even help to photocopy your ballot after you filled it out before it gets read. I don't know. We will talk to Larry about that further. Larry said that most of the Biden and Democratic National Convention viewers were 80% of them were young, and yet most of the young are not watching. And he said one of the ways to stop the young from voting is you go to the colleges and pay for frat parties, keggers. Keep them too drunk to they're just they're more interested in partying than participating. So let's see. Larry thinks that Obama used the Russians, Chinese, and Ukrainians to stack the internet even more than Trump did. And he thought, anyhow, he said Trump's really learning the politics more than he knew coming in. He was pretty naive in the beginning. He said they will take the country. He's concerned about the men in blue, but they need a leader. They were asking about stores closing, and Jason asked about Ed Klein's book, All Out War, about Antifa traveling to Syria for training, and Larry said actually Antifa is a new manifestation of Al-Qaeda. And so they aren't Americans who went to Syria. They are people they're Al-Qaeda who has come here. And Larry knows that anything that Klein has said is true because he helped Klein work on the book. And he said it was pretty scary with what they were investigating. He said Trump will win, the Republicans will take Congress, and the Democrats are going to then push, as soon as the election's over, they're going to push to get rid of the Electoral College. And he's very concerned because there are 28 states where electors can vote whatever they want. 26 states, they have to vote for the will of the people, but 28 states can vote whatever they want. That's because there are places like DC and Guam that and Puerto Rico that I think have electors. He said it's been that way for 75 years, and he told the story that's also in 28 Years to Nowhere about how he got on air and offered a $5,000 bribe for somebody to flip their vote in one of these states where they can vote however they want. He's really concerned about AI, Larry is, and said that Congress is very concerned about AI. So that's in a nutshell what Jason said. You can get a few more details if you watch for half an hour. Wait, Hypergirl, come in tomorrow with that question. Let me write it down. About the removing the trucking routes. Now, if there's less food, there are fewer trucks needed to move it around, right? If there are less goods being produced, there's less need to move things around. I'm going to give a little bit of news that I've heard today that we need to be in prayer about very, very seriously. September 17th, there's a group that is from some ad group, Canadian ad group, from who is calling for a White House siege, their term, a 50-day siege of the White House starting September 17th, going until the election. Their photographs advertise the White House in smoke. The leader of this group talks about the evils of consumerism and doing culture jamming, which is sabotaging and causing economic harm. They plan to be relentlessly negative, and they want to wreck this world. That's a quote from them. So be in prayer, folks. We need to call down angelic protection around the White House. we need to ask the Lord to help. We have got to be contacting, I would guess, good idea to contact Congress and say, do something about this to stop it. Well, not Congress, call the Department of Justice. And I'll ask Larry about that and ask him about that, whether it's appropriate for us to be calling the Attorney General. Yes, Michael, I had heard that I had heard that today about him, but when I was listening, that part of the story was hard to catch, and the video I was watching buffered right then, and so I missed exactly where he was from. Another prayer request, folks. There is typhoon, it's like a hurricane, but Typhoon Maysak. It blew over Okinawa and did not do any major damage. It went over our military base there. And it is now going to hit Korea tonight. And they're expecting a Cat 4. That's not how they do it in categories, but it's the equivalent of what we would call a Cat 4 hurricane. And then, of course, there's another one coming up behind it. And not only the fires in California, but 3,100 people were evacuated in southern Spain because of wildfires going on there too. One thing I wanted to ask Larry about was Kanye West running for president, and the number one platform he has is we need to restore faith. Yes, ad base, that's what, yeah, I said ad group. Yeah, ad base. Thank you, Michael. And it's a group out of Canada now. Kanye West running for president. My concern is he going to take votes? And there he was with President Trump, a year or two ago in the Oval Office, and suddenly he's running. Now we know that the little squirrely guy who ran Grace Company, when Clinton was running against HW, his name slipped my mind. I can see his picture in my head. Anyhow, he split the Republican vote, which helped get Bill Clinton the win. And so I'm wondering which party Kanye West is going to split. It'd be nice if he split the Democrats, but I'm not so sure. Another thing I was listening to was the claim that socialism is actually a religion because they are wanting you to put your faith in the state. So that's an interesting thought. And then it was interesting to listen to Biden's speech today. I didn't get to hear all of it because it was time for Larry. Biden was still talking when Larry went on with Jason, so I switched over to listen to Larry. But one of the things I heard Biden say today is there is nothing this administration does that is normal. Now, there was so much he was complaining about, saying that, if he were to be in charge, he would do, X, Y, Z, so many things. And I thought, isn't that what Trump's doing? Isn't that what Trump's doing? Isn't that what Trump's doing? It was pretty funny. And the other thing was, I thought, I put in the chat, because they did have a live chat, for crying out loud, look how many years you were in Congress and vice president. All these problems you say you want to address, you had the chance to do it and you didn't. So Ross Perot, thank you, Laura. Yeah, the name slipped my mind. So those were all the news things I had to share. We're going to keep this short because I'm going to meet Mark. For those of you that are waiting on your t-shirt, we are actually going to pay for them today. So I'm going to read a little bit in, I'm still in Isaiah. I'm kind of working my way backwards through my notes. And I ordered yesterday 2 different Bible studies. I think I'm going to take a little time rather than just reading through the Bible in a year like I have done. There are some years that I decide to do a more deep Bible study instead of just the reading through. So I've ordered 2 books on prayers that are in the Old Testament and prayers in the New Testament. So I'm looking forward to that as soon as that comes in a couple days. Isaiah 32, verse 2. Each man, this is something, my note that I put within what I wrote in my notes. As I was reading through this a few weeks ago, a month ago, I read this to the Lord out loud, and I said, this is my prayer, Lord. And we can use scripture as prayer. It says, each man will be like a shelter from the wind and a refuge from the storm. Lord, make us shelters so that people come to us to find refuge in you, but come through us. We want to do that. Make us like streams of water in the desert and the shadow of a great rock in a thirsty land. That is what God is, but he wants us to be that too. We're made in the image of God, and we shall be like him. Now that happens in heaven, but when the Spirit of God is in us, then we have the authority that Jesus had to be doing things. And so this is a chance for us to be a shelter for people who are going through hard times. So look for opportunities to be that shelter to others. Isaiah 32:6, for the fool speaks folly, his mind is busy with evil. He practices ungodliness and spreads error concerning the Lord. The hungry he leaves empty, and from the thirsty he withholds water. Yeah, I don't know about you, but it sure seems to me that we have an awful lot of people that are acting, where good is evil and evil is good, and things are totally upside down. Skipping over to Isaiah 30. Yeah, that's a little dyslexic. Isaiah 35. Strengthen the feeble hands. This is a prayer for us. Lord, strengthen the feeble hands, steady the knees that give way. Larry's knees gave way, and he fell and landed on his head, and broke his hip and thigh for the third time when he was just about ready to come home, in July. So he had to stay longer than he expected, and has been in the hospital again for a week and is finally back home. So he's weak from what he's been through, and so he needs. I'm not surprised that even half an hour with Jason was enough to do him in. So strengthen the feeble hands, steady the knees that give way. Say to those with fearful hearts. Now remember, Revelation 21:8 talks about who's going to end up in the fiery lake of fire. And the number one person going to the lake of fire is the cowardly, okay? Say to those with fearful hearts, be strong, do not fear. Your God will come. He will come with vengeance, with divine retribution. He will come to save you. I think that's something that we can cling to and hang on to. I was struck in Isaiah 37, verse 4. All right, hang on. It may be that the Lord your God will hear the words of the field commander of Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, whom his master, the king of Syria, has sent to ridicule the living God and say that he will rebuke him for the words the Lord your God has heard. So pray for the remnant that still survives. So here we have Sennacherib and his warriors ridiculing the people for following God, ridiculing God himself. How dare you follow God? Don't you realize that Sennacherib said, don't you realize my gods have been so powerful that we have overcome everybody else in the world? How dare you think that your God's going to help you? And King Hezekiah, this really freaked him out. But we need to be aware and watch for when we hear people actually ridiculing God. God doesn't like that. He's a jealous God, and he doesn't take ridicule. Remember, there was David. When David went to meet his brothers and take them food when they were lined up for battle, there's Goliath ridiculing God. David rose up in indignation. He was very well practiced with his slingshot. He'd killed a lion, he'd killed a bear in protecting his sheep, and he got indignant. That's the kind of indignation we often see in Larry. And he was going to take on, he knew, he comes in the strength of the Lord. When Goliath was saying, are you a gnat coming after me? What is this? You're sending a child. And David said, no, I come in the name of the Lord. So we need to be watching out for ridicule and stand up against it, and ask God to deal with it. So moving down, still in Isaiah 37, where it's talking about this, where Jerusalem was delivered from the hands of Sennacherib. So starting at verse 14, this is a prayer of Hezekiah. Hezekiah received the letter from the messengers and read it. Then he went up to the temple of the Lord and spread it out before the Lord. And Hezekiah prayed and said, O Lord Almighty, enthroned between the cherubim, which was the altar there. Now he wouldn't be in the holy of holy places. He would not be allowed to be in there and live. But he said, you alone are God over all the kingdoms of the earth. You have made heaven and earth. Give ear, O Lord, and hear. Open your eyes, O Lord, and see. Listen to all the words of Sennacherib that he has sent to insult you, the living God. It is true, O Lord, that the Assyrian kings have laid waste all these people around us and all their lands. They have thrown their gods into the fire and destroyed them, the gods of the people in surrounding territories. For they were not gods. They were only wood and stone, fashioned by human hands. Now, O Lord our God, deliver us from his hand, so all the kingdoms on earth may know that you alone, O Lord, are God. When I read through this, I prayed this to the Lord. Look at what Antifa is doing. Look at what these Democrats are doing. Look at what the rhinos are doing. They are calling out against God. They are worshiping Lucifer, the Hollywood folks. They are ridiculing God and they are elevating Lucifer. And God is not blind to what is going on, but he will hear our cry against this. Verse 23, who is it you have insulted and blasphemed? Against whom have you raised your voice and lifted your eyes in prayer? This is what the Lord has said against Sennacherib. I will defend this city and save it, is what the Lord said. So, that brought comfort, and God actually did. What ended up happening was Sennacherib heard about some other war that he had to go leave and go deal with. He had to squelch a rebellion, so he took off. And it was many years before anything more happened. Scooting over to Isaiah 40, verse 9. The word of our God stands forever. You who bring good tidings to Zion, go up to a high mountain, lift up your voice and shout, lift it up, be not afraid. Say, here is your God. So that was an important scripture to me because, it really is important for us to talk about the Lord because he is our only hope right now. He really is. And one of the things that I noticed in Matthew, I think it's Matthew 28, where Jesus said, go into all the world and preach the gospel. The gospel is the good news. He said, go and make disciples. It's not just make converts, but make disciples. So it's important for us to have people that we can teach in the ways of the Lord. And then one last verse, because the others on this page I had done maybe a couple more verses. Says he tends, this is talking about just like Psalm 23 about the Lord is my shepherd. He tends his flock like a shepherd. He gathers the lambs in his arms and carries them close to his heart. Do you know why he would carry lambs close to his heart? Why the shepherd carries the lambs? The lambs aren't smart enough to follow sometimes. And if he had a curious or rebellious lamb that was constantly wandering off, he would break their legs so they wouldn't wander, because he knew the wolves would get them if they wandered off, or the bears or the lions or whatever other wild animal would come and get them. So he would break their legs so they couldn't run off. And then he would set their leg and he would carry the lamb until their legs were well enough to be able to walk on their own again. And then because of all that loving attention, they would never leave the shepherd's side. And so that reminds me of in Hebrews, where it talks about God disciplines us because he loves us. And a good parent will discipline their children because they love the child and want the child to learn and be mature and not just be rebellious, because rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and witchcraft, it says in Revelation 21:8, will land you in the lake of fire. That's not where you want to end up. Okay. Well, I read this weeks ago, but I'm going to read it again, just a little bit more. Isaiah 41. I'm going to start at verse 9. You are my servant. I have chosen you and have not rejected you. So do not fear, for I am with you. Don't be dismayed. I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. All who rage against you will surely be ashamed and disgraced. Those who oppose you will be as nothing and perish. Though you search for your enemies, you will not find them. Those who wage war against you will be as nothing at all. For I am the Lord your God, who takes hold of your right hand and says, do not fear, I will help you. Do not be afraid, for I myself will help you. But you will rejoice in the Lord, and I, the Lord, will answer them. I will not forsake you. When I read through that, when I was reading through Isaiah, and then when I shared that several weeks ago, these verses reminded me of President Trump. These verses reminded me of Larry and how God has stood and helped them through what they have gone through. For they're standing up for the people to help us through this time so that we can win and maintain our freedom. And then I told you guys that the Bible even talks about fake news. That's Isaiah 41:29. See, they are all false. Their deeds amount to nothing. They're but wind and confusion. So, even God cries out, fake news, fake news. So, which I thought, that kind of made me laugh. He's referring to the idols and the fact that they're false gods and they're fake. And that those who trust in idols, are foolish. But it's just like those who trust in the mainstream media are foolish because you're getting fake news. It just struck my funny bone. So I'm going to end on Isaiah 42:4. He will not falter or be discouraged. Why? Because you don't need to be discouraged if you know you're doing God's will and you stay close in touch with him. His promise, this is a promise that even he's talking about Jesus Christ in Isaiah 42, verses 6-8. I, the Lord, have called you in righteousness. I will take hold of your hand. And this is what he was saying about Jesus, but this is something you can claim too. I will keep you and make you to be a covenant for the people and a light for the Gentiles, to open the eyes of the blind, to set captives free from prison, release from dungeon those who sit in darkness. I am the Lord, that is my name. I will not give my glory to another. So that's it for today. And now that Larry's back and going to be back with us tomorrow, I will see what I can do about starting up my own post here. And I'm sorry that Larry's picture was up, indicating he was going to be here. By the time I found out that he was not going to make it, it was too late for me to change. I know how to put a picture on at the last minute, but I don't know how to take it off at the last minute. So talk to you tomorrow, and hopefully Larry will be with us, and hopefully he hasn't worn himself out so badly he's out for another week. He can tell you what happened. He got sick, that's for sure. He got very, very ill. And he said he did tell me Sunday night when he called and sounded he had just woken up and come back to the land of the living, basically. He said it was a scary time for the family. So thank you for your prayers, because once again, the Lord has heard and answered, and been willing to bring him back. So I am tickled about that and looking forward to what he has to share with us tomorrow. God bless you. And as I think we're going to start working on election stuff and more motivation on what we can do and how to help our president stay in office. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.